Secretary, if Secretary isn't here, Kathy, would you mind doing the roll call? I'm Cheryl, I'm sorry. Good morning. All right, we do have a quorum. And we'll move to general agenda items. There are none. And so we will move on to the monthly presentation of the fire department. Oh, I'm sorry. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. If there are no corrections, the minutes stand approved. Okay. All right. Now we'll move to the monthly presentation of the fire department.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As you can see, September is a pretty typical month for us. No high acuity or large events that I typically would highlight during that. Is there any questions about the report that you were provided? Okay. I wanted to just give you a couple of updates. Actually, this is the first time we haven't had a candidate to interview here for quite a while. It seems that every one of these meetings, the Police and Fire Commission meetings recently, we've had at least one recruit to bring in for an interview, and I thought I'd talk about some of the stuff that Tony and I have been working on and where we're at with our current recruitment and retention. So as of the 27th, we have another resignation inside the department, and that's 2 resignations in October. Both these young firefighters are heading to the southeast portion of the state where they grew up, being closer to family. Both cite not issues inside the department, but desire to get closer to home. And of course, you see this frequently, you know, when we opened up for lateral transfers of receiving firefighter paramedics, other departments are doing the same, and so it's allowing these young firefighter paramedics to move their seniority to a department closer to home, and it's to be expected that it's somewhat of a shell game of the firefighters moving in and around the state. So unfortunately, with that most recent resignation, we are right now, we've got John Hammond, who we brought last month for interview. He's going through his, we've abbreviated his academy down to 2 weeks because he's so seasoned. He's been working in the trade for 7 years. So he will be sworn in on Friday, and then he'll begin his period where he's not counting towards staffing on the med unit. So we should have him on the street counting towards staffing in about a month. But even with his onboarding, that puts us at 5 short. So we've carried a large number of openings through the entirety of this year. We have never hit full staffing. The closest we came was 4 short. And so there's always one of our 3 crews that's operating 2 short on the firefighter paramedic end. This leads to huge problems as far as staffing. We have to put 15 firefighters on the street every day. And it becomes really difficult when we have the volume of overtime that we do. Again, this morning at briefing, Battalion Chief Bingham was warning we're looking for a sign up for overtime. If not, we're going to have to mandate on Tuesday. I expect that we're going to see that. We're going to have to, you know, and that's almost, I'm not going to say everyday basis, but probably 3 to 4 days a week right now we're having to mandate overtime. And then that does not lend well to the organizational culture. It becomes a cyclic problem in which we're trying to solve. So what are we doing about it? Well, there's a lot that we're doing about it. Unfortunately, some of the things that we can do right now enact change 1 to 2 years down the line, and the fact that the recruitment and retention begins with high school students in the community, people in the community that are interested in joining our trade. I've had a couple of really fruitful meetings with the new dean and associate dean at North Central Technical College about our recruitment retention efforts. They're assisting us in any way that they can, including some stuff going on tonight. I'll turn it over to Jeremy here in a minute to talk about what we're doing tonight, because it's the first time we've ever had to do it. But I also wanted to talk about some of the things that Tony and I have been talking about between the 2 of us as we close right now. We've got a process that's open, a hiring process. We came out with two hiring videos. If you look on Facebook, you'll see them. One with Sethany Sass, one with Tanner Allen. They're fantastic videos. I wanted to rejoin the department after watching them. They're very enthusiastically, incredibly well done, and exactly what we need. And so we've been advertising those. That's going to close this Friday. When I asked Jennifer, I think it was on Thursday, where we stood we had 2 applicants, only 1 was qualified. So unfortunately, I don't think we're gonna see, I think and this is anecdotal, I can't say I've got the evidence to support this, maybe Tony would, but it seems for every maybe 3 to 4 applicants, we get 1 that we end up hiring. It's just that process where maybe some people have changed their mind along the way, they were gonna apply, or they didn't have the qualifications to move forward in the process. And so it's with 5 openings, I'd like to see, 15 to 20 applicants, but we're not gonna see that. I don't know what that number is gonna be. So it's becoming increasingly concerning to our organization and how we're gonna proceed with this. So we're really trying to advertise. We're already doing the lateral transfer thing. We're about to re-enter contract negotiations next year. We can talk about, some wage stuff with that low end, the entry level wages to try to be more market friendly. That's one of the things that Tony's been looking at with a number of the positions that are open in the city. I think what we may be at the point of is we're gonna have to reduce our minimum requirements. And so right now we require, and it's gone really down, so right now we require firefighter 2, which is the highest level of firefighter certification in the state. Hazardous materials operations, which now is included in the firefighter 1 curriculum, if they've had it recently. To highlight that, we've got 1 candidate sitting on an eligibility list right now. As soon as he completes that hazmat ops, he's now met all the qualifications and we can onboard him. We're ready to offer him a conditional position. And then lastly, the biggest one is that state certified or nationally registered paramedic. That takes about a year of schooling, the paramedic. There are some compressed programs that do it in 6 months. It's a 40-hour-a-week, super compressed paramedic program. Really, and Tony and I need to sit down and figure out which one of these we're gonna minimalize. Of course, it's more budget friendly for us to say hire paramedics and train them as firefighters, but then there's also some other hurdles in the way there. And the fact that a lot of times you see your best candidates that are the great firefighters first, and then they learn to be paramedics because that is the more physically demanding job. It's the more technically savvy job. We tend to find out late in that process going through the firefighter 1 and 2, whether they're claustrophobic to wearing an SCBA mask, or they're afraid of heights, climbing off a ladder onto a roof, things like that. So I've got some concerns hiring either one, not having those backgrounds prior to coming in. So maybe it is at the point now where we talk about hiring, people with minimum qualifications, and then we send them to portion of the schooling or all the schooling. The unfortunate part of that is I've got a limited number of positions open in the position, and when I hire someone that's going to be in that position, I can't put them to work for 6 months to a year while they train. It's now holding back the operations, and we still have that mandating problem with the overtime. So, growing concerns. We're trying to hit it with recruitment in the community, and I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy. He can talk a little bit about what he's doing. He's doing tonight.
Thanks. Good morning. So we're trying a lot of new creative ways of getting interest to the fire service, and being as creative as we can. And one of those is our first ever career night. We'll be holding at Station 2 tonight. We've advertised it on social media, flyers, as well as the help of NTC, getting it out to all the high schools and junior highs and middle schools, to let young people know that we're doing this and they can come and learn. And hopefully, we reach out to the younger crowd. And I don't even know that that's the target. Anybody is really the target, diversity and all those other good things. So hopefully we get a wide variety of people to come. We did have a registration for it, and as of last Thursday, we were up to almost a dozen. I don't know what we're at today. So hopefully we're over that number considerably. We'll be doing a video in the community room where it'll be a chain of videos of all the cool things that we do, the wide variety of different technical rescue type stuff that we do. So that'll be going. We'll have a table set up for us and the NTC with brochures and questions and answers, as well as an area to go if they want to talk with HR. We talked about HR being there, but Tony and I decided that maybe not at this one, but maybe at an upcoming event. And we'll also be having some props out there to show flow paths, actual little bit of fire included, so they can see those types of things, ambulance, mannequins, CPR, all those good things. So hopefully tonight we get some interest and we start moving forward with the future of the fire service and getting more people involved and interested in serving their community. So, any questions on that?
So, thanks for all that you're doing. I know that you're doing a lot of efforts to kind of create a pipeline in the future. Where's the line? I mean, at what point are you, in which station are you shutting down?
Yeah, and I'll bridge into the next topic because it's all intertwined. As your fire chief, I need to come into my administration of this department with a solid analysis of the department and comparing that to benchmark standards available to us right now through the NFPA standards, through NIOSH studies and stuff like that, where we need to be as a department. And we simply lack staffing. And so when you see these times of strain inside the department, we don't have the ability to, what they would refer to that as browning out an engine. And we looked at that during COVID when we had one of the crews so heavily affected, all positive. Are we going to have to shut a station down? And we do have a plan for that. But it's not at that point yet, and I think that, I'm going to put words into Jeremy's mouth here, but him or I have not even entertained that in this current time. We at 15 on the street every day, we're well short of where we need to be. And I do feel with the addition, and I'm going in front of council on November 9th, I'm gonna go into the next topic here, which is our initiative to add 9 additional firefighter paramedics to the department. If and when we were to get permission for that or hire those as a slow trickle or whatever it is, once they're on board, that gives us a cushion, more of a cushion to maybe have that ability to go all the way down to 15. I see really the minimum staffing at 17 to 18 per day, but have the ability to go to 15 in these times of distress, and that is really where we're at right now. The goal with adding 3 additional firefighter paramedics to each crew, so 9 total, would be to put firefighter paramedics in the back of each engine company in the community. Right now, our engines run with 2 firefighters on it, so they have a lieutenant and an engineer. We run a cross-staffing configuration. Then when a fire call drops, then the med crew that's assigned to that station switches that role. That's why we're dual role, and they become the firefighters for that engine company. Now, that engine company is going to arrive with only 2 firefighters, and their 2 medics, or their 2 firefighters are acting as paramedics on the ambulance. Adding that third to the engine, and it still doesn't put us anywhere near the national benchmark for staffing, which would be 4 per engine. Not in a cross-staffing configuration. That then gives us a tangible entry crew between the lieutenant and the firefighter. And so then as a second due engine arrives with 2 more, you've got an engineer on the pump panel, you've got a lieutenant that's available to go in with a firefighter that's riding in the rear of that apparatus. Now the next engine arrives and we've got a 5-person entry team ready to execute a rescue early on initial operations and fire. And it isn't just on the fire calls. Really, we're getting busier on the EMS units, and what we look at there is a number called the unit hour utilization. And so I pulled our unit hour utilization in 2020 for Med 1, and we were at what's called a 0.14. And it's a mathematical calculation. I'd be happy to explain it at length another time. But really, when we get north of 0.18 is when we want to talk about the addition of a 4th ambulance, and we're not there yet. We're not there yet with the needing to add ambulances to our fleet of 3. There are times when we go 4 deep on calls. We have the ability to do that. We pull that cross-staffing crew that staffs the truck company, the ladder truck, the rescue, and Med 4. We do deploy those when we need to in times of distress, but we're not at the point where we need to add that. So having that 3rd firefighter paramedic at each of the firehouses would lend to the ability for us to do early entry firefighting, even when we have med crews that are busy. And it'll also allow us to supplement EMS calls by having the engines that arrive. Now they're arriving with a firefighter paramedic that's riding the med, 2 out of his 3 days during his swing or his or her days, and it is current on the EMS operations. Not that our lieutenants and engineers are not, they are, but it's an effective 3-person team for first arrival EMS while we wait for a med unit. That's the other problem that we've been having. As we get busier on the med units, there's occasions where we send the engine out as a first response unit, and then we're waiting for an ambulance to clear, become available, or come from outside the city from Safer or Riverside. And so by having an effective crew of 3 on that engine will affect a more positive outcome for those patients also. So there's a lot of great things in there, and it's just been a lack. As I've looked historically, as I've researched this topic, I went back to determine when we hit our current number for staffing, and that was in 1970. In 1970, we moved from 56 firefighters in this community to 60. Today, we sit at 61 with 1 admin person. So we've grown by 2 positions, and our call volumes tripled over that period of time. And at that time, we had 3 Cadillac ambulances, and they had some Boy Scout first aid training, and it was all about putting a Band-Aid on someone and driving really fast to the hospital. And now we have state-of-the-art EMS, point-of-contact care in your living room. You're going to get the unbelievably great care. That hazmat, you name all the other technical disciplines that we picked up over that last 51 years and had that lack of growth, that the organization has come straight to the point where it's about to unravel if we don't infuse some people into it. And so it's very concerning to me. I think that efforts like what Jeremy's doing here, I think that's going to become the norm in the fire service. We're going to have to turn the Army, Navy recruiters, finding people that are interested, that have that servant's heart in our community, because it takes special people to do what we do. But we don't have the ability to turn down our volume in order to titrate the demand. We have to meet the calls when the community makes it. They call on us 600 times a year to meet a 911 issue for them of some sort, and it's our duty as the chief and deputy chief to try to find new ways and inventive ways to fill these holes. So to go back to the point of your question there, I feel that it's going to take, before I brown out a station, we're not there yet. I don't know where that line is yet. I do have plans. We wrote them during COVID. I don't want to pull them out. Not yet.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm fully supportive of adding more firefighters to the department and being at a national benchmark. I mean, if we really want to make sure everybody goes home, that's for real.
Yeah.
And the reality, if I heard you right, was that in our recent recruitment, we had 2 people apply?
So as of last Thursday, that closes Halloween. It closes October 31, and we have 2 that have applied during this process thus far.
And one's qualified?
One's qualified, yes.
So how many more do you think will be applying by Saturday?
We usually see a late rush typically. Am I correct, Tony?
I mean, generally when we talk about our recruitments, we do usually see people who wait until the deadline before they submit those. It's hard to anticipate. I think one of the issues that we're seeing is that we've recruited for firefighter all year, and so our numbers, each subsequent recruitment, are dwindling as we exhaust the interested candidate pool. So if I'm being honest, I think we'll be lucky if we get to 3 or 4 in this recruitment. Although hope springs eternal, the department's done a really great job stepping up their social media presence. It's just not really bearing fruit quite yet. As the chief mentioned, sometimes that's a long game, where what it serves to do is it gets people, youths who aren't yet age eligible, to think of us as an employer, and then we see several years down the line a benefit, but that doesn't help us much in the immediate needs.
Yeah, and I'm not wanting to beat you guys up. I'm just trying to paint it, which, for years I've been saying the world's going to get a lot less convenient and more expensive because of what's happening with labor. And that's happening everywhere. I mean, it's not you guys. I mean, it's everywhere. But the fire service can't shut down. I can go to Starbucks and they can be closed. And I go, damn, I can't get my coffee today. But an ambulance doesn't show up at my house? We can't have that. And so I think we're in a different phase of contemplation now about what's the future of this department and how do we make sure that we can continue to live and provide the service that we want. Maybe that looks at, do we continue to provide service outside the city walls? I mean, yes, they've been good contracts. They've been good for us to do as community partners, but at some level, maybe that doesn't make sense anymore. Those are tough decisions, but we have a great level of service in this community, and as taxpayers, we, expect that, pay for that, and we want that to continue. And labor's going to dictate that from now going forward. And you've got 4 openings, and you add 9 more?
5.
5, and then you add 9 more? I mean, the reality of us finding 14 firefighters, It's just not going to happen, let alone 5. I mean, we really have to do something quick because you're at that point where it's no longer healthy or conducive to the future of the department to continue down the path unless we can break that. And I mean, you got to be competitive as hell. I don't know how else, you can do that, but right now that's got to be above a lot of other things that we're focusing on in terms of the labor force in the city. And I've read the articles. It's every employer. I mean, it's not the city. It's just there's priorities, and right now we have to make priorities and then be more efficient and productive in other areas where we can scale back. But we can't scale back in what you guys do every day, and that's at the point where I think you're going to be facing here if we don't turn this around quickly. And so.
Yeah. We, November 9th, I'll be in front of the council. I've been meeting the mayor on this, shortly after I took the position as chief. And she's been a great asset to me. We've been working with the finance director also at looking some creative ideas. Of course, there's only so much, there's so much money in the purse for the city. And so it's not like they can just, say that we're going to hire 9 more. I haven't gone to the council yet with this. This will be going November 9th is the first that I'm going to be formally discussing this with them. We're going to do a presentation on the front end of the council meeting. We even debated what committee do you start with, and I'd like to speak to all of them collectively rather than as small individual groups and do a little bit more, descriptive, in-depth analysis of where we're coming with these numbers and why we're there. Honestly, when I look at the federal benchmark of NFPA 1710, there's no way this community can afford to staff us that high. So it's a matter of what's acceptable to our community, and I think that we're going to find out through that process. There is the availability of some grant monies that we expect that grant to open next year. There's lots of options to fund it. It's all in a matter of how we want to go about it, and if we have the support of the community and the council and the community. So November 9th, I'll be there with the presentation, and I'll add this as an ongoing topic to each of the agendas going forward for the PFC. Yeah.
One more time.
Yeah.
The argument we can't afford is going to fall flat when somebody doesn't have an ambulance show up.
I agree.
And I know these are tough decisions. I know it's tough to do that, but that's the point you're at right now, going forward, and we got to get real serious about this. And then the other just question I have for you is, locally, are the other departments experiencing the same vacancy, and where are we relative to their wages?
I can't speak to the relativity of wages. I'll turn that over to Tony. I will tell you that, so Jeremy and I just had a little local Central Wisconsin professional chiefs meeting with Stevens Point, Marshfield, us, and Rapids. And all the departments are experiencing difficulties in filling their rosters. I don't think anyone had a completely full roster at that point, which is so rare. It's just such a turn in the fire service where we had hundreds and hundreds of people competing for singular positions, and now we're having to beat the streets to try to get people that are drummed up and interested. So I know that is a problem. And Jeremy was at the state chiefs. Go ahead.
Yeah, I could add to that. I was at a state chiefs education conference 2 weeks ago, where chiefs from all over the state, including one from Illinois, were there, and this was a topic that we discussed at depth or in depth, and everyone's getting creative and everyone's trying to see what the other departments are doing, what other chiefs are doing to solve this problem. I think we're a little short when it comes to staffing, but everybody is. And I think as you see these new trends come out, and as like the chief talked about recruitment, Navy, Army style, military style, I think we're going to start seeing these numbers turn around. And I think the challenge there is worth the fight, as well as I think it will pay off. I can see the future of it paying off in the fact that we're putting all the work in. This is a statewide problem where not just one local community trying to fight this. So I think once we all get our heads together and it starts to take ground, people will realize that they want to get into this service and learn more about it where they didn't know or just go with the flow before. So I do think that it can turn around, and I accept the challenge, and I don't know that we're ready to give up yet. So
I'm just going to pop in here. I just went to the League of Wisconsin Municipalities Conference last week, and there is a municipality in southern Wisconsin who is doing very well financially. They have zero problems, and they basically been poaching all the firefighters from those surrounding municipalities, and they're paying $30,000 more a person. It's hard to compete with something like that, but I just thought I'd let you know that that's something I heard about.
As far as our wage status, the last time that we did negotiations, we compared our wages to comparable cities, and we were, I would say we were on the middle higher end. So we weren't leading, but we also weren't in the bottom half. So we were kind of, I would say, just a little bit above average compared to the comparables.
I don't have anything further. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, monthly presentation, the police department.
I'll start with the biggest deal today is the Chiefs' triumphant return.
Ta-da! I don't know how triumphant it is, but I'm back. Most of you know, some of you know, I was off for ankle surgery for 5 weeks, and so just to start the operational report, Matt has been filling in, doing double duty for 5 weeks. I think he's taken the rest of the week off after the meeting. Actually, that might not be too far from the truth. So just want to acknowledge Matt and appreciate all the work that he's done in my absence for the last 5 weeks. And hasn't been easy for him. We've been on the phone quite a bit. He stopped at my house a couple of times to talk through a few things and keep me updated on things that have been going on. But I appreciate all the work that Matt's done for the department and for the community in my absence. In regards to the operational report, I'm going to have your quarterly report to you next month for this meeting. But just a couple of quick things. One is that tomorrow night at the city council meeting, we're hopeful that they'll approve our new administrative captain position that Matt talked to you about last month. That was approved by the HR committee a couple of weeks ago and is on the agenda to be considered tomorrow by your city council. So if that's approved, our hope is that at the November, December meeting that you would have an opportunity to hear from a candidate for that administrative captain position. And of course, that opens up other opportunities for promotions within the department if we do promote a captain. So those should be upcoming if it gets approved tomorrow night at City Council. And then one of the budget items that we've asked for is a 0.6 FTE clerical position. That'll be considered by the city council in this budget process as a supplemental budget request. That is a position that we're going to share with the fire department. And so we're hopeful that that gets approved as well. So in terms of operations, that's another thing that we're hopeful will be approved. The fire department, like the chief said, has one clerical staff member for their department, which can create some concerns if that person would leave suddenly in terms of cross-training and understanding the operations of the fire department. So one of the things that person would do if it's approved would be to supplement and cross-train some of the things that Mindy does over at the fire department. And she's a very critical person to the operations there, and it'd be difficult for them to continue operating if she would leave unexpectedly. And then, of course, we have some concern with our ability to keep up with open records requests specific to our body cameras. They're very time intensive to review and to be able to release. And we have redaction work that needs to be done, and you have to watch those videos minute by minute, which Amy knows well. So we're hopeful that we'll get that position approved. So that's what I have in terms of operational report. Matt, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just think it's relevant that the conversation Chief Bartek was having regarding staffing. Today, this month, is one of the few months in my career where we're fully staffed. Although we have people in recruit training right now, that'll be short-lived. We have retirements coming up that generally occur in January. One known for sure, one other anticipated. We're also doing something that we haven't historically done, which is run a hiring process to create an eligibility list so we don't have a 4 or 5 month gap in trying to identify candidates. when the chief and we got hired on the same day in the year 2000, there were 350 applicants for our positions. It took multiple waves using the large room at the tech just to test, where now we don't even test anymore, and we get about 30 applicants, of which we're about halfway through that process right now, and we've got 5 or 6 that so far show some promise that we're interested in seeing more about. So we are in that process, and the way in which business is being done, I think, in the fire service and in the police department is our staff are getting recruited by other organizations. And sometimes that has to do with the cultural fit of the organization and what are the priorities of the Wausau Police Department, does that fit that individual? And sometimes it's geographic, is it more convenient where they live? Other agencies are doing things that just aren't feasible for our organization, like here's a take-home car. You don't have to drive your car anymore, or it could be financial or benefits. For the most part, I think we do quite well here in the city, but that doesn't mean that what's important to someone else. So we know that we currently have staff that are being recruited away by other organizations. And, you know, a conversation the chief and I were having, I'm like, is that just the cost of doing business now as a law enforcement agency, that we might have someone that we invest heavily in, they're a good officer, we've trained them, and we get them for 3 or 4 years, and then they go somewhere else for whatever reason. Those are things that we're looking at organizationally and where we're at from a staffing standpoint. So you should probably be seeing officer candidates moving forward to the commission, I would guess, January-ish, as new recruit schools start, because we take people, and I wouldn't be here today if the city didn't take the perspective of we're looking for good candidates and we're willing to train to be a police officer, because I would have probably been voted least likely to be a cop.
Maybe still.
At age 23 or 24, they probably would have still voted that. So each agency's dealing with these challenges independently. So that's what you should expect to see in the future.
Well, and I think to Mr. Loy's point that he made earlier as well, you know, we're seeing the market for a lot of jobs, the pay is increasing. So, you know, you can go and work at, you know, delivering pizzas for $20 an hour. And that's a concern. I mean, our starting rate is $25, $26 an hour. It's not far off from that. And so I think the value of the market is increasing, also to the mayor's point that she made earlier. And so we need to be considering that. And our union negotiations are scheduled for end of next year. Our contract is good through the end of 2022. So we'll see where that goes. We'll look at comparables, and we'll have to give that some consideration. The second item I have on the list here is awards. I'll talk about the National Association of Police Officer Awards first. That is, the NAPO is an organization that every year during Police Week out in Washington, D.C., they host what they call the Top Cops Award. And so that is it's a very prestigious event. It's a dress, suit, and tie event, and they have a lot of celebrities that come and present the awards at the banquet. And we had the opportunity to send 3 of our officers, along with Captain Baton, who escorted them out to Washington, D.C. last week. And they received honorable mention for the state of Wisconsin for the officer-involved shooting on January 16th of 2020. And that those officers were Officer Ben Price, Officer Mike Harash, and Officer Sean Pershala. And they were out there during Police Week just last week and received a Top Cops Award from the National Association of Police Officers. And so we're really excited that they were able to be acknowledged for the difficult but yet tremendous work that they did in January of 2020. We have Sarah Bettish here. Officer Sarah Bettish, do you want to come on up, stand up, be recognized? And talk a little bit about Sarah. Many of you know her. She's our Victim Resource Unit officer. So she works with victims of crime, a lot of domestic violence and sexual assault victims, but she works with a lot of different types of victims. This is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and she was recognized recently by the women's community. And I'm going to read the nomination that they posted for Sarah. As a law enforcement officer for Wausau Police Department for over 10 years, Officer Sarah Beddish has specialized experience in the areas of sexual assault, human trafficking, and domestic violence. She has served as a patrol officer, community resource officer, and most recently the victim resource officer. Sarah shares her knowledge through educational presentations and interviews to inform the community about human trafficking myths and truths. Partner agencies regularly consult with Sarah for insight regarding investigations of sensitive crimes, endangered youth, and suspected human trafficking. Sarah's dedication has been recognized with the Wausau School District Friend of Education Award, Problem Solving Officer Award, Life Saving Award, and Excellence in Policing Award. One nominator had this to say: Sarah has been an incredible ally for victims of crime in our community. She is always open to collaborating with community partners to help victims in whatever way she can and to make the process better. Sarah's been the victim resource officer for a couple of years now, and I think the day-to-day work that she does makes an unbelievable impact on victims of crime in our community. She's an excellent person for that position because she just cares a lot about people. We knew that before she was the victim resource officer, of course, but day in and day out, she's fighting for victims of crime, and she's very empathetic and serves them very well. But also, she's a very tenacious investigator, and so she does a very good job of making sure that we have evidence to hold perpetrators accountable in those domestic violence cases and a lot of other types of cases. So very proud that Sarah's here to be recognized by you folks today, and proud that she was recognized by the women's community for her work in human trafficking and domestic violence and sexual assault. She was here maybe, 6 or 8 months ago and gave a presentation to the city council on human trafficking. And if you've ever had the opportunity to see her speak on human trafficking, it'll definitely open your mind to what's going on in our community and the importance of the work that we do on human trafficking. So I don't know if Sarah, if you want to say anything? No, she's okay. All right. Yeah. Very humble. So anyway, we just wanted to make sure that Sarah was recognized and you folks understood the value and the caliber of the people that we have at the Wausau Police Department serving this community. So thank you, Sarah, for being here. I'm going to give it to Matt for significant cases.
The last month was similar to other months with the type of cases that we get, but there were two things I'd like to highlight, some of which you may hear about, and I know you guys end up talking to people in the community. First and foremost, we arrested an individual over by Krieger's Bakery for calling numerous times, reporting crimes occurring in the bakery in the wee hours of the morning, and this individual was just upset with the businesses in that area, so he ended up getting arrested last week. There's an inside joke to that one. That's not terribly significant to us. But at the end of the day, we still, every single month, are dealing with heroin and fentanyl overdoses, frequently causing death. And so we're responding to those death investigations. And so you'll probably hear that from me over and over again because I think it has to stay in the forefront of this community's mind as they make decisions and understand actually what's going on. But last week we also had media contact us and in regards to something I don't think people think about on a regular basis, and that's the amount of fraud that's occurring on our elderly in this community. And it comes in multiple fashions. I was standing in the clerical area of the department the other day when, they're calling to tell me that my social security number is being used by the drug cartel and I need to press 1 to avoid going to federal prison. So I always press 1 and talk to them. It doesn't go very far, but not every, especially senior citizens in our community, they're buying into what's going on and they end up transferring dollars. We also have numerous cases where we have widows or widowers who are lonely. And so they're being preyed upon from a relationship status where people are reaching out to them as they become more users of social media. And that ends up resulting in the transfer of their wealth to other individuals, as well as all the other scams. And just in our agency investigating this year, we're well over $1 million of loss to elderly in our community. So That's a significant issue. I think it's something that I know our department's going to be trying to do much more public awareness of. But it's a really difficult thing to deal with, people who are later in life, who are easy to convince. We've sat down with people and said, this is a scam, and they continue to send money because it's relationship-based. So just wanted to make this group aware of those type of cases that are going on, in addition to all the other things we investigate, because over the next 2-3 weeks, you may be asked about that, because I think it's going to be more in the forefront of this community because of the media and some of the work that we're going to do regarding that. Any questions about that?
Thanks, Matt. And then the last item that we have is budget. Talked a little bit about our supplemental budget request for the clerical position. That's really the bulk of our additional requests for 2022. City Council's going through a process right now with the budget, and as always, they're looking to save money and to cut money and not to raise the taxes on our citizens. So we're working through that process. Sorry, Siri. We're working through that process with our city council, with the mayor, and with the finance director. We have additional meetings this week, so hopefully that process will be smooth. But we don't have a lot of requests outside of our regular salary increases that are contractual for our union and for our non-represented staff. So, any questions on any other police operations?
I'll do it one more time. So, next to staffing a competent and effective military, governments are responsible for having police and firefighters in their communities, right? So I really think that we have to do something sooner than maybe even a year from now. You said, both of you, I think, said your contracts are up in a year. That may be too late. Yeah. This is going to escalate even quicker now, and we really need to be stepping on it in this community. And it means priorities. I mean, it really does mean priorities about what we need to do first to the citizens. And we have to be vigilant and ahead of that curve. And I think one of the strongest psychological motivators is loss aversion. And so as you think about new people coming into a department, and even turnovers happening in the middle age and even late career, people are just being willing to leave jobs because the opportunity is greater. And there's not loss aversion when you do that. So as you think about your contracts and how you set yourselves up against other departments, I would encourage you to think about, retention in that standpoint is how can people have that strong, psychological motivator that I will be leaving the best department in the state of Wisconsin if I leave this department. And that's how we have to set up, I think, our culture and in all the things that we do for our employees in these two departments. And the urgencies now, because there are going to be a lot of communities, especially rural communities, on the outside looking in here very quickly about being able to keep their schools going, their fire protection and safety, and we can't be on the outside looking in as a community. And so the urgency, I really think, is now, and that's why I've harped on it today. I probably spoke too much, but it's very important to me as a citizen of this community, and I think it's important to a lot of citizens in this community that we are out in front on this. And I know you guys are doing all that you can, but whatever else we can be doing, we got to be doing it now.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief. All right. Next meeting will be November 22nd. If there aren't any questions, I'll take a motion to adjourn. All right, and we are adjourned. Thank you.